highest self. Welcome back to ARRISE on the Wings of Your Mind. I've been out of circulation for the past few months, and I've missed you guys. You know, I was building a relationship with my metastatic prostate cancer. We were learning how to become friends, and with the side effects and complications due to chemotherapy, I got slowed down a bit. But now we're back on track. The cancer and I are in a relationship that is comfortable, and it's on its way out. So I'm looking forward to saying goodbye to it. So this is the first of a series of programs that I'm developing called Becoming Your Spiritual Self. So I want to help you to make a change as necessary to rise above the limitations of your physical knowledge, of your physical self. This is a series that's designed to help anyone who wants to rise, who wants to become more powerful spiritually, because spirit has control of the physical, whether we want to believe it or not. So while this will be helpful to anybody who's listening, it doesn't matter who you are, I do have a particular group of people that I have in mind that I'm trying to target, that I feel is vitally important for them to hear what I have to say. Even though I've been away from this broadcast for a number of months, believe me, I have not been idle. The angels and guides who surround me have been very active, and I have been following their instructions and learning a lot in the process. So I have very much to share with you over the next few episodes. So let's start off with this passage from the book of Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. God said, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions." Now many of you might question, what does that got to do with me? How does that fit? This is, after all, in the Bible, which is, we're talking thousands of years here. So how does that affect me? Well, yes, it is true that this is God talking to Abraham, and in the Bible, and he's telling Abraham that he will be the father of a nation, and that even though he and his wife are way old, they're going to have children, and his descendants are the ones who are going to be taken away from their homeland to a foreign land where they will serve for 400 years. So what does that got to do with us? Well, it's very relevant today. So I'd like you to stop for a moment and stop viewing the Bible as a book of history. Let's take a look at the Bible as something else. Now, according to a book by Neville Goddard, who was an internationally famous metaphysical teacher back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, 1940s, 50s, and 60s. He wrote several books, and one of those books was called At Your Command. And in the book, At Your Command, he had this to say: instead of looking upon the Bible as the historical record of an ancient civilization or the biography of the unusual life of Jesus, see it as a great psychological drama taking place in the consciousness of man. And as we know, the consciousness of man is eternal. There is no time limit on it. So when the Bible is read in this light, according to Neville Goddard, when the Bible is read in this light, you will find to be the greatest scientific book ever written. Greatest scientific book ever written. When I was going through mystery school, my spiritual teacher, the head of the school, her name was Norma Tringali, and Norma used to say that the Bible is the greatest mystery book ever written once you learn how to read it. The greatest mystery book ever written once you learn how to read it. So reading the book as a great scientific mystery book, let's take another look at that passage I read to you just a minute ago. Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Now when this passage was revealed to me, and I say revealed because I admit I did not come upon that interpretation on my own. Actually, I was awakened in the middle of the night with that passage on my mind, and in looking it up, it was explained to me by my angels and guides that it was relevant today as well as a few thousand years ago. So as it turns out, that passage has great meaning for me because I am the descendant of African slaves brought here in America. And going back into American history, the year 1619 is a critical marker which marks the beginning of which marks the arrival of Africans in Jamestown, and that was the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, 1619, where my African ancestors were forcibly removed from their land, their homelands, stripped of their cultural identity, and enslaved in this foreign land, America. And this was followed by 400 years of affliction that ended in 2019, 6 years ago. 400 years ended in 2019. Now, there are those who will argue that slavery ended in 1865, June 19, 1865. And yes, that is true. Slavery officially ended in June 19, 1865. However, following the abolition of slavery, there was an additional 150 years of systematic affliction. I'm talking Jim Crow laws, real estate redlining, racial massacres, burning down of our communities, job discrimination, and ongoing social contempt. So, through all that turmoil, we're talking 400 years now, through all that turmoil, lately, the last 50 years or so, some of us have actually made it out of the ghettos and found some semblance of financial success. I was one of those. However, no matter how high we rose, no matter how much we proved our skills, no matter how much we proved our value and our professionalism, we still had to live with that label, that hidden label, affirmative action selection. You are here because of affirmative action. And initially, I guess I was an affirmative action hire when I got into advertising. But I did prove my worth, and I did win awards, and I did climb the ranks that had nothing to do with me being a black man. So even though we were able to prove our skills and our professionalism, we had to deal with that affirmative action label. So in 2019, 6 years ago, that 400 years came to an end. There was no event marking that the end of 400 years had come. It just passed quietly into history. But over the years, in the last half of the 20th century, there have been many attempts to change the conditions of the African American community. But the truth of the truth of the matter is, there are such a radical change must happen before the African American community can be salvaged, can be restored to some level of harmony and prosperity. It's going to take something more than human effort to make it happen. So as we look at the racial state in our society, it's still pretty ugly. A large segment of society, the mainstream society, sees the African American community as one big block of black people who tend to cause trouble with crime and violence and misbehavior. And admittedly, there's a significant segment of the African community that is still doing that because they're locked in isolated communities and they are pissed off. They're not getting proper education, they're not getting jobs. You know, the unemployment rate is incredibly bad. And so a result, many of the residents in those communities, and many of the residents in those communities are law-abiding, God-fearing, as you say, but they are victims of poverty, they're victims of gang violence, and a seething, frustrated anger, which, as I said, causes some of us to act out. So here we are. 2019 was the end of the 400-year cycle. That was 6 years ago. So let's talk about that 6 years ago. Now, our current leadership in Washington is rapidly eliminating any programs that seek to give black people any benefits not enjoyed by the rest of the population. That is, of course, the DEI, I'm not even sure, equality, inclusion. So the DEI programs are being wiped out completely. All the affirmative action, all the DEI programs are being wiped out so that everybody is on quote-unquote equal footing. And this is actually a good thing. It may seem hurtful to some black people who are still being discriminated against, who are still being oppressed. But actually, it's a good thing that these extra programs, these extra privileges are being eliminated so that we're all on the same page. Because it's time that we as black people got on with the business of uplifting ourselves and uplifting our community. But how do we do that? I mean, there's so many programs out there that are supposed to be helping, but they actually have very little effect on the overall state of things. And so it's time to realize that we just can't do it alone. The changes that have to happen are not based on external efforts, external activities, external programs. No, it has to be internal. It has to be in our minds first. There's a line in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, who says, "Do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The renewing of your mind. The wings of your mind. We, all of us, each and every one of us has a power that can make spectacular changes in our environment, spectacular changes in our community in the coming years. The mechanisms are already in place, but we have to incorporate those changes within ourselves. We have to change. What did Wayne Dyer say? Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. So it's going to have to be internal. Now, as many of you already know, I pay a lot of attention to the numbers in a situation, because the numbers affect the situation as in ways that give me clues as to what's going on at the higher spiritual level. So the number 2025 is 6 years after the 400-year expiration of our quote-unquote affliction. So what does the number 6 mean? Well, the number 6 in the craft of numerology, because that's where we get this information from, the number 6 symbolizes harmony, equilibrium, and responsibility. It embodies the archetype of the caregiver, the nurturer, and the mediator. Number 6. The number 6 seeks balance above all. The energy of the number 6 moves us to look after our loved ones, beautify our surroundings, and maintain ethical standards in all our dealings. It encourages the cultivation of deep emotional bonds, a strong moral compass, and a desire to create a peaceful, welcoming environment. It's also said that the number 6 causes individuals to support their communities, to guide or heal others, to make their communities a much better place to live. Now, whether that involves raising children or volunteering or maintaining a team or working in creative fields to contribute to the fabric of the community. Basically, what I'm saying is that the number 6, which is this year, 6 years after the 400 years have expired, the number 6 is coming in to align us with the higher powers of spirit to bring order and harmony and prosperity to our communities. It's here now. And it's working through us, whether we know it or not, it's working through us to make those significant changes in our communities. So before you protest about how hard it is or how busy you are or the fact that you're trying to survive and you don't have time for all this, the task of rebuilding our community is humanly impossible without the influence of spirit. Without the influence of spirit. Excuse me a minute. So human efforts alone can't do it. There's just not humans are not capable of doing this on their own. There are too many egos involved. There are too many petty emotions involved, hurt feelings, stepping on toes, etc. etc., etc., etc. So I'm reminded of the old saying, when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember that your original intent was to drain the swamp. And that's what happens when we try and do it by ourselves as human beings. It's just not possible. It's just too big a task. It has to be a power much greater than ourselves. And that power is infinite intelligence. Infinite intelligence. Now, infinite intelligence may be a new term for you, so let me define it. Infinite intelligence is a concept that is associated with the idea of a higher power or supreme being that possesses unlimited knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It's used to describe a divine intelligence that is beyond human comprehension. So to put it simply, infinite intelligence is God. Now, God and infinite intelligence, the relationship is this. God is smaller than infinite intelligence. God is smaller because God is something that we can visualize in our minds. When we think of God, we automatically define God. And when you define God, you minimize God because it's if it fits in our minds, it's much too small to be. My cat is messing with me. So as I was saying, when we think of God, when we think of God, it minimizes God because we're able to define it in some way in our minds. And God is much too big to be defined in our minds. And so what we get is, and to replace it is infinite intelligence. Infinite intelligence is undefinable. Infinite intelligence is everywhere present. Another term for infinite intelligence is universal consciousness. It implies that everything has a consciousness, whether it's living or not. Now, that's a hard one to I know for a lot of people to imagine, to wrap their heads around. Everything has a consciousness. That means the very chair that you're sitting in, not only is it not solid, but it has a consciousness. So if we go back, for instance, to the book of Genesis, where we see the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." My question is, what did God use to create the heavens and earth? What did he use? Nothing. Nothing but itself. God had to create everything from itself because there was nothing else. There was nothing but God. Infinite intelligence. So infinite intelligence had to create everything from itself. And since infinite intelligence is consciousness, universal consciousness, everything that is made from it has a consciousness. There is nothing that exists that is not made of God stuff, that is made of the stuff that God is, that consciousness of infinite intelligence. So there is nothing that is not God. There is nothing that is not God. I remember that was beat into my head. That was many years ago, having an experience where I was kept awake at night by the angels telling me that there is nothing that is not God. So there's nothing that is not God, because God has to create everything, the heavens and the earth, from itself, because there is nothing else to use to make anything but its own consciousness. Infinite intelligence is in everything because everything is made of infinite intelligence. There is nothing that is not made of God stuff because God stuff is all there is. All things, whether they are animate or inanimate, are made from the consciousness of infinite intelligence. Now, this is a concept that's been believed by mystics for thousands of years. But science never accepted this concept because they did not have the instruments to test it. Now technology is bringing us to the point where lots of things we considered as unreal are now becoming real because science can measure it. For instance, for centuries, the mystics claimed that the human body, was surrounded by an aura of light. Now science has discovered that human beings actually radiate light, and that human beings are surrounded by an electromagnetic field that extends outward from their body for a few feet. What about consciousness? Science always believed that consciousness is a property of complex physical processes in the brain. In other words, the complex work of the neurons creates consciousness. But that's not true. They're finding out, at least some scientists are beginning to come to the conclusion that it's not matter that creates consciousness, it's consciousness that creates matter. Consciousness creates matter. Consciousness is the fundamental state of all matter, and matter arises from consciousness. So the underlying fabric of all things, the underlying fabric of the universe, as big as it is, and all the physical phenomena, including matter and energy, etc., emerge from consciousness. Everything that exists has a consciousness, and that consciousness permeates the entire universe and everything in it. So what does that mean for you? That means that you are an expression of infinite intelligence. Since everything is made of consciousness, the consciousness of infinite intelligence, you are an individualized expression of infinite intelligence. You are an individualized expression of infinite intelligence. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. As stated in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 28, Paul says, "For in him we live and move and have our being. As certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. We are the children of God. We are the individualized expressions of infinite intelligence." Remember, according to the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, who is not in the Bible, that gospel was left out. I think part of the reason it was left out was because it gave us so much power. Because she said the primary reason that Jesus came was to introduce us to ourselves, because human beings saw themselves as only physical beings, not spiritual beings, only physical beings. They did not understand that they were actually spiritual beings that are directly connected to God. So their minds needed to be open to the truth of who and what they really are. And that's why Jesus said in Luke 17, verses 20 to 21, "The kingdom of God is within you." The kingdom of God is within you. And in John 14:12, Jesus said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do." Because we have the power. Because we are spiritual beings directly connected to God, and that power comes through us. So it is through our acknowledging that we are the instruments of God, and if we surrender to the guidance of God, who is operating within us, who is expressing through us, we can make miraculous changes to the world around us, to our community. We can do what has been impossible for us to do previously. All we have to do is surrender to the power of infinite intelligence, also known as God, who will work through us to uplift our communities out of the dysfunction and into prosperity and harmony. It can be done. As was said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Infinite intelligence can and will make it happen for us if we surrender to it, if we see in our mind's eye the harmony and prosperity we want to build in our community. God can make it happen for us. God can. Nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is impossible with infinite intelligence. So let us not be hypnotized by the things that we see before us, that our physical surroundings. Let's not be hypnotized by that, by what we think we know. Einstein said imagination is greater than knowledge. Knowledge is a boundary of limitation. That is, what we think we know corrals our minds into accepting what has been, that is the past. And that knowledge forces our minds to, or resist in our minds, the ability to expand outward, to do mental exploration and look at the future, look at the possibilities. There are a few people around who can do that, but we all need to be able to do that. We all need to be able to use our minds to see the future, to see the possibilities. We all need to use our minds to expand our worlds. That's why this is called the wings of your mind. Now, in future programs, we're going to be teaching you about how to see the world as it really is. And that is not a physical world and a spiritual world. No. The physical is actually an illusion, a hypnotic illusion. The only thing that is real is the spiritual world, because it is all spiritual. It is all on our perception. It is all within our minds. So we have to learn to call upon the power of infinite intelligence, because that is our right as spiritual beings, because we are the sons of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And one of the first things we have to learn as we become greater spiritual beings is to learn to forgive. Powerful thing to do. We need to let go of the anger, the resentment, and the blame, because these only hamper our development as spiritual beings. Now, once we learn the truth of our powerful selves, there will be no need for those negative emotions. Those negative emotions are tied to little things in the physical world. And we are above all that. We are above all that. We are spiritual beings. We do not have to tie ourselves down to that physical plane. So as was stated in the book of John, chapter 8, verse 32, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth of knowing who and what you really are, of knowing how powerful you really are, knowing that will set you free.